Hello, everyone. Let's do a quick mic check. Alrighty. I think that's okay. How is everyone doing today? I'll have the cameras up and running in just a minute. Tristan, baby boy. Tristan's crying for attention right now. Let me see if I can get him. He don't think will let me. No. He just wants to run away. He wants me to chase him. That's what he wants. All right, let me see if I can go catch him. All right. And then we can open with some cute, adorable, fluffy kitty action. Dresden, where are you going? Go on, little boy. Aw, aw, you're so hyper. Got him. Got him. Aw, Dresden. Meow. Little boy. Yeah. Aw. Little boy. He wants to play is the issue. He wants me to chase him. Isn't that right, little boy? Hyper. You're so hyper. Whoa. Okay. Okay. I moved my camera a little. This one, because I lowered everything because I was getting glare up here. And now, apparently, when I go here, my head's more in the way. Oh well. Trying to keep my head out of the way of the camera if possible. Here. All right. Alright, right now I'm just looking at like what things I need to fix, and so on. There's a little thing, a few things in the face, not much. It's very subtle at this point. The ear, yeah, the ear needs some fixing. Hey, Cookie Monster, how you doing? All right. It's a very nice self-portrait, bro. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I've been working on it, obviously on and off for quite a while, so hopefully it um like the quality, the amount of work to quality kind of shows hopefully a bit. Um I still have to do the gold leaf and all that, but that's obviously at the like end of everything. Um so my goal is to get it to the point where it's basically finished, put the gold leaf on and then do the final touch-ups and effects and everything that need to go on top of that. So it's a whole, unfortunately, it's a whole process because like once it's ready for the gold leaf, I have to what's it called? I have to let it dry before I can do that. You have been using good compositional aspects. I appreciate that. Thank you. So I'm just kind of warming up. I haven't really done any painting today yet. So I'm just gonna start by doing like, you know, easy things that are low stakes. That's usually how I like to start because it's um, gives me a chance to warm up, and if I mess something up, it's not a big deal. But yeah, I also need to start working on my next. Well, I have one of these that I need to do the gold on, which that'll be um, one thing. But then I want to start working on the next one, and for that, I probably am going to have to. I'm either going to hire someone or ask a friend or someone to model for me because I think I'm going to need some reference photos for that. 'Cause I already have the idea. I need to like light it, and do a photo shoot and everything. And while I have the idea, once you get the model and you start doing the photo shoot, the reality of it becomes apparent, and it can really change elements of it. Although I guess Cookie Monster, you don't really have to deal with that as much. One of the benefits, I guess, of the type of art you do. How are you doing, Cookie Monster? Also, for the concept I have for this other painting, because you mentioned aspect ratio, no, no compositional aspects you mentioned, but yeah, I might have to actually make um like custom make the panel that I'm going to be painting on, because it's my thought is it's probably going to be long, um, like tall but narrow, and so I'll probably have to make it. My art is really limited in composition, but I'm working on that. I mean, it's always good to be working on it. I don't know that I would, don't know if I'd call it limited, but I mean, it's very different and it lends itself to very different things, obvious for sure. But yeah, um, I meant I was more referring to like the photo shoots. You probably don't have to do many of those. It's really, you only need to do photo shoots if you need, photo reference. We have a complete different style of art, but it's great to see your work, to see you work. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, we definitely completely different style of work. But that's one of the beautiful things about art, you know? I watched the thing. I don't know. I think I shared it in my Discord. It was about like what portraits, what type of portraits sell and what type of portraits don't. And I watched it, and the person was making some good points. I don't agree with all of them, but for the most part, they were mostly good points. But it was interesting because she was talking about the fact that like people don't buy portraits of people if they're like, if they're, I don't know what the right word would be, like if they look disturbing or you know crazy or like dark. Yeah, dark was one of the things like she mentioned, and I was like, really? Because I follow an artist who does like literal horror um paintings, like horror inspired paintings, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure she sells pretty well. So I was just like, that, I understand what she's saying in theory. I think she's right, but I definitely think there are exceptions to that general rule. So I don't know. It's funny. I'm gonna do Cookie Monster says I'm gonna do some portraits in oils without thinner, just so I can say I did portraits. LOL. Cool. Go for it. Dark portraits are perfectly sellable. Yeah, I mean, I I get what she was saying. Like people don't want to have this disturbing things on their walls in general, but it's like there's a ton of horror fans out there who will absolutely buy, disturbing things and put it on their walls. And it doesn't have to be gory and horror, necessarily. But yeah, so I was just like, I understand. It does limit a little, right? Like it is more limiting than to a degree, but yeah, there's a limit to how disturbing. it should get. Definitely, the more disturbing, the less people will, the fewer people will be interested in it. However, in contrast, the more disturbing it gets, the it might reduce the overall pool of people who would be interested in it, but it might increase the fandoms, of the particular people, So like it's definitely a niche thing to put yourself into. I don't know that I would do it, but if that's what really speaks to you, um, I kind of do. Like, I think people should do what's genuine for them as artists because I think that's the best way to speak to the customer. It has to be personal too. That's where you recognize the soul of the artist. Well, I don't think it has to be personal to the artist, but it necessarily. But it has to be like personal in the sense that like it can be about them. It can be their thoughts, their feelings through their eyes. Like all those things are personal, and it doesn't have to be like directly personal. So in that sense, yes, I agree. Like if you're an artist and you're fixated on one thing, one particular thing, and that's the thing that you're always fixated on, and that's what you like, then do that. Like because that there's a reason you're so fixated on that. Like if you would do that, regardless of if it's sold, that's your thing. Then do that. I think. Um, I'm not saying it's easy to find your audience, but there's definitely an audience out there because there's always an audience out there for someone. My trick is to avoid trying to win an audience or fame. That way people know how exclusive my art is, might be willing to pay a little more for it. I mean, you know, that works. That's great. I'll be honest. So I suck at this. This is an area I am not an expert at. And I don't know, I don't have good advice in the sense that like I um I couldn't give people advice on like how to be super successful, how to grow an audience and stuff like that. I would not sell myself as someone who could do that well, you know. Um but um I have seen like other people do it, and I've seen both the positives and negatives on how some of them have done it, and they're um, you know, definitely different strategies. And it's the strategies aren't foolproof. What works for one person will not always work for someone else in this area, unfortunately. So, unfortunately, I don't have like the answers. If I ever do get the answers, I will be happy to share them with everybody. My kind of strategy or goal is to try and put myself out there as much as I can. Try and get in front of the people who will find my artwork, who will like it and find it inspiring, hopefully, and be willing to pay for it because they either love my art so much. Actually, no, that's the reason they'd be willing to pay for it. That's hopefully the reason. And then, I hope some people, it'd be nice if some people also liked me and found me inspiring, but that one's a little tougher in my mind just because I don't like, um, how can I put this? I'm so used to myself that it's not easy to like see myself the way others see me. And so it, that one's tough. Um, you know, it's one of those things when people, I've known people who have had like crazy lives. They tell their stories, and it's like their life story just seems insane to me. But to them, it's just kind of the way it was, and doesn't always stand out as being crazy. And I think sometimes I I think I'm that way too because you know, I tell people about my life and it's just normal stuff. But sometimes they look at me like, what the hell are you talking about? So, hey, Michael, welcome. Cookie Monster says, yeah, do you think that perseverance is good quality for artists? Or should we just know how to create something good and just do the work? Uh, well, wait, perseverance. Am I dumb? Perseverance just means like continuing, to keep going on, right? Like to push forward. That's kind of the same thing, isn't it? Did I misunderstand something? Or did I misread something? I mean, you definitely need perseverance as an artist to keep going on when things aren't, going your way. Although I will say, like, and this is a tough one to kind of sell people on sometimes, but I don't think that being a, like, quote unquote professional artist is for everybody. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean, like, some people will not thrive in that environment. Even if they were to achieve success, they're not going to thrive in that environment. So it might not be the best thing for them, but um, that doesn't take away from them as an artist. It just means that they need to, you know, kind of adjust their goals and their um, direction a bit. Um, Michael says, "I hope you are well." I'm doing all right. How are you? Um, Cooking Monster says, "I can't explain all my thoughts that well." LOL. Oh, hey, Des, having internet issues. Be right back. Okay, Des, no worries. But yeah, so I'm not entirely sure, Cookie Monster, exactly what you mean. But I mean, look, unless you're super lucky and you have great connections and you're very successful from the very beginning, yeah, every artist needs perseverance. It's a big part of the whole process. Um, I would say. I mean, when does the point come when you're better off giving up? That's a rough one. Honestly, I don't have a good answer for you on that. I think it depends on the artist. You know, I mean, I know that's not a very satisfying answer. It depends a lot on the artist and how they want what they want their life to be like. Um, and how they overall feel about things. I don't Yeah, there's no good answer. The one answer I can tell you that, like, to me, I feel is a good, quote unquote, good answer is that, based off of everything I've listened to and watched with artists who have, who are successful, who have been successful, um, you don't have, like, you can, I don't want to say give up because I don't feel like that's accurate, but you can give up and still continue, right? Uh, so what I mean by that is, like, you don't have to pursue it the same way the whole time. You know, the question becomes like, okay, the question becomes like, what do you want to get out of it too, right? Like, what's the whole point of it all? And these things also change over time, right? Like, if I don't have kids, but if I did, I'm sure my answer would change over the years, from when I was in my 20s to when I, had kids, right? Um, so there's no one answer fits all. Um, but I will also say I do think it's worth. This is something I've dealt with over the years. One question worth asking is, what does success even mean? And, like, what is the point of it all, and what do you want out of it? These aren't easy questions, and they're not easy. They don't usually have easy answers. But it's tough. It's one of those things that's it's really tough to deal with. Um, like I said, unless you're very lucky, in which case you don't have to worry about any of this. But if you do, if you have to worry about making choices, if you have to worry about your finances, if you have to make those calculations, yeah, it's not easy. But I think the thing is that, like, um, I've listened to a lot of interviews with artists, specifically uh, women who had kids and had to raise their kids while being artists and so on. It's not an easy it's not an easy process for them. Um, and these were interviews with people who succeeded before they had the kids, so it's a little different. But you can keep working on it. Uh, one of my friends from LA, he um, he put out an indie comic book, and he has an independent podcast, and he's now working on his, I think, second issue of his book, of his comic book. It's a children's comic book, and it's slow. Like, it's all really slow going, unfortunately. But he's doing it, and he has a kid, and he has a job, and he's still, and he's married, but he's still doing it. So, you know, he didn't give up. It just slowed down a lot. Um, and there's definitely a shift in focus. But once again, I also think, like, the question also becomes, like, why are you doing this, or what do you want to get out of it, And it's not always an easy there's not always an easy answer to that. And a lot of times, I can tell you this too, it's not always a very mature answer. I know when I was younger, my answer was not the most mature and realistic, you know? But that's changed over time. So yeah, I don't know. I hope that helps. I mean, I can get into more specifics if you want. Um, does Cookie Monster says, does having more knowledge about art make someone a better artist, or is it being good about the mileage? That's a great question. Both and neither, right? Like, if you don't have the experience, the mileage, the knowledge won't help you. But if all you have is the mileage without the knowledge, you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities, and options. Um, so there's that. So and I will say, there's also, like, there's a difference between, not not all miles are the same, kind of, so to speak, right? Like, there's some mileage that makes you better faster, and some mileage that doesn't really help you improve. Actually, there's some mileage that it reinforces bad habits too. So it kind of depends on, you know, unfortunately, it kind of depends on a lot of different variables. I know, not the most, once again, not the most satisfying answer. Which is, I know, like, rough. I will say, I do think that artists should experiment a lot. Um, Not just in the beginning. I'd say especially in the beginning, but also later on, still always take some time to experiment with different things because it's it's great to experience them, but also the knowledge can help you early on. It can help guide you to to help you figure out what you want or like. Later on, it can bring in elements that are different or unique that, set you apart and give nuance to your work, even if you're not like vastly changing it. Um, but yeah, and of course, knowledge is such a broad question, um, because do you mean knowledge about art history? Do you mean knowledge about art types? Do you mean knowledge about materials? Right? All of those are important in different ways. Um, so, how can I put this? You don't need a knowledge of art history, really, to be a great artist. However, having knowledge of art history can can help you and also prevent you from reinventing the wheel, so to speak. Like, you know, it, um, and it can help you kind of, I'd say, move forward faster. There are some pitfalls in that knowledge, though, because it can also limit you if you feel too constrained by it. It can prevent you from experimenting. So, got to be careful about that particular one, in my opinion. You love thinking about these topics, Cookie Monster. I mean, I enjoy it as well. It's fun to talk about art. Um, so yeah, but the material stuff is can also help a lot with so so much, um, and that's where the experimental aspects of things comes in a lot too, because it's like you won't know, um, you know, you like you can learn about materials, but until you play with them, you won't know what it feels like to use them. Pretty much as I'm working on a new painting of 120 by 200 centimeters. Nice. Yeah, the next painting I want to work on in this my Kintsugi series, um, not including the one I've already started that I need to finish. I'm talking about the new one that I have in mind. Um, that one, I'm not sure how big it will be, but I'm thinking like I'd obviously have to sketch it out and everything, but at the moment I'm thinking maybe double the height of this one, but not a lot wider. Like I said, the in my mind it's a very narrow uh, painting. But we'll see. The largest painting I've done in oils was a 30 by 40 inch um, canvas or panel. And it'd be really nice to work on a large one again. It doesn't have to be that large necessarily, but it would be nice to go big again. I've stayed kept a lot of my paintings small for a lot of different reasons, but it would be nice to do another large one. I think what I need to do is another large one, and then at the same time plan out and work on a bunch of smaller ones so that I can take breaks from the larger one as I go. Because I do get bored and lose patience after a while because it feels like I'm not making any progress even when even when I am. I mean, even on this painting, I feel like that sometimes. So, on the larger pieces, it's even more pronounced. I'm also wondering if I should buy some acrylics or some cheap um, oil paints for larger paintings for when for the start, so I can do like the beginning parts in oil or acrylic cheap and spend less money on it compared to like the higher quality paints that I tend to use. Zooming out is a great method to make more cinematic pictures. So the subjects you are painting is silhouetted in a grandeur environment. Yeah, yeah, that is definitely um, one of the advantages of working larger. It's funny because even this piece, which is not the best example of that because it's pretty tight on the figure, right? But even this piece, like the face, if isn't much bigger. Actually, the face is probably smaller than most of my other paintings. But even though it's larger, the face is smaller. But it's because there's all the extra stuff. So yeah, Cookie Monster says larger paintings do not necessarily have to take more time to make. Um, it depends on, so you're technically correct. However, for this type of painting, um, generally, like there's, like if I were to do a graph of the size versus like speed, right? When it's very, very small, like tiny, it takes longer. And then as it gets larger, it becomes quicker up to a certain size. And then once again, the time starts decreasing because there just is not only is there more canvas to cover, there's more stuff you need to bring to a finish. And so there's just inherently more detail and more stuff that needs attention, not to mention just the coverage. In theory, you're correct. It can, there are artists who the size doesn't really affect it that way. Um, but that is, I don't think the majority. Um, I think generally speaking, like the larger it gets, the longer it takes to a degree. Like I'm not saying that it's, you know, like 100%. Like if it's double the size, it'll take double the time. And you know, I don't think it's that. But yes, there is some like element that it's like no, it'll it's larger, so it takes longer. But I will also say that if going back to larger paintings, I haven't done a ton of them, so maybe my opinion on that will change over time. I doubt it, but you never know. Exotic Kitty, hello, nice artwork. Thank you very much. How are you doing today? Welcome to the stream. I'm dual streaming, by the way, so if you've, you know, if I'm talking to people that you don't see in chat, it's because it's on my YouTube chat. I am working in oils. Generally, my YouTube channel and Twitch are dedicated to my oil paintings. This currently is a self-portrait that I'm working on. It's part of a series that I haven't really named the series other than just to refer to it as my Kintsugi series because it's inspired by uh, Kintsugi. Um, so yeah, Exotica says, not too bad, thank you. Just having breakfast and going to set up my stream soon. Sorry, I don't mean to promote, but that's what I'm doing. Wanted to find some art to watch on the site while I set up and when I started. Debating if I want to knit, crochet, or cross stitch on stream for a few hours. Nice. No worries. That sounds like fun. Knitting. Trying to think. I think I tried it when I was younger, like a kid, but haven't touched it in ages. I would not be able to claim any ability in that department. I don't think I'd have the patience for it anymore, honestly. I know some people find it relaxing and so on. I don't know that I don't know that I have the patience for that type of stuff anymore, but you know, um, that's just, you know, me. Not it's not a critique on anything. It's just like my ADHD and everything. Yet somehow I have the patience to do this, you know. But even this, I will say there are definitely things in my own art that I don't like. I almost never paint people wearing patterned clothes because I just do not have the patience to deal with that, you know. I mean, if it really isn't important, I will. But otherwise, it's like I do not have it in me and I will try and find a way around it somehow. Exotic cases. Oh, you should pick it up again. There's a new and then and not new study that helps to avoid oh, there's studies that prove that it helps avoid dementia. Um, yeah, probably just more your passion, so it's first in line, I suppose. Yeah. Well, so the dementia thing is very interesting, and also um, it's not only knitting; it's a lot of creative things. They've been finding um, connections that it helps with that because it basically you keep using your mind, and it's yeah, it's not just so it's like it's the creative elements that help, but also the constant learning that's a big part of it, right? Because as everyone knows, when you're doing art of any kind, right, there's a constant learning element to it, right? Because it doesn't matter how good you are, you're always learning something new and challenging yourself to a degree, you know. And so that's a big part of the like fight against dementia that they've been finding out. That's one of the things I love about art. That's like, it's every time you go to do something, like every painting is like there's new elements to it, and there's always something different, you know? Um, and I think that's what keeps it so interesting always, you know? It's never the same. Cookie Monster asked Liad, what would you prefer? Earning a lot of money from your work during your lifetime, or no success but having a profound impact on the world after your death when your work is finally discovered? Cookie Monster, the first one. Without a doubt, the first one. I can explain why. Um, because I'll get to experience it, right? If I if this stuff happens after I pass away, I won't be aware of it. I won't know it happened. I won't get to experience it. And I don't know what kind of impact it could have. Could be just because it's profound doesn't mean it's a positive one, you know? I don't know. I would rather be able to have that impact in the present. Also, you like the future is just so unknown for obvious reasons. It, I'm not going to worry about it, basically. Um, that's an art in the art sense. Like, if somehow my art would make the world a better place to the degree where, like, it would improve the lives of people, in a way, like if it was like something like that, where it's like, oh, somehow you get to stop global warming, then I'd have to choose that. But I'm assuming that's not the case because I have no idea how oil painting would lead to that. So I'm going to have to go with enjoying it while I'm alive. All right, let me catch up on chat. Exotic Kitty says, I took a while break from it, but it's nice getting back into it. When I stopped, I picked up cross stitching because I just needed something new for a bit. I totally understand that. Which was nice, but then that took forever to do projects. Right. So I wouldn't pick up my knit or crochet for a while. But now I've picked it all back up, and you're jumping back and forth on things. Yeah, I get that. It's kind of like what I was talking about doing larger paintings. I'm also very much should not have started new projects somehow. I had others to finish, but whoopsie. I think that's an artist problem. I have a bunch that I need to finish too that I haven't finished yet. I don't know if I'll ever get to them, but I'd like to. And now also, Kitty says, I now also have been back in some digital art and been making little bookmarks. That's cool. You're overloading yourself, and you just put yourself in a stressful spot all over. Um, I mean, yeah, I get that. It's tough. You want to do all the things all the time. I get that. Cookie Monster says painting is not good for the environment. Lol. Um, True. Painting is not good for the environment overall. There are things you can do to make it better or worse. However, not to excuse people to do anything they want to the environment, because I I do think we should consider the environment, but once you like start looking into it a little bit and you see how much like big companies actually do and governments do, and then you compare it to like what you personally can do, it's I wouldn't worry about it too much. Put it that way. Like if everybody, it's one of those things where it's like if every individual was perfect, you know, but the countries and companies and all that stayed the same, it wouldn't make a difference, type of thing, or barely a difference. So it's not worth being too concerned with, if that makes sense. But not to say that I what's it called? Not to say that I don't think you should consider it at all. I just if you want to do art, just do art. Don't worry about the environmental impact. Is I guess what I'm getting at. And if you're rich enough to do something about it, what then you can personally do something to make it less negatively impactful, you know? Yeah. Exotic Kitty says, I think it's also because I ache a lot after a project. My hands are falling apart, but I try to do them hand stretches. I mean, yeah, definitely do hand stretches. Do all the stretches. That's not good. I mean, that's yeah, it doesn't sound good if your hands are hurting so much. Um, I wonder if they're like some people, you know, hate the brushes that are so thin, and they put like bigger grips on them and stuff like that to help. Um, you know, maybe that's something. I don't know if that's something in what you do. Um, Exotic says another reason why it's nice to swap between knit and crochet use is different muscles, I guess. Yeah. Exotic says, oh, really? Yeah, yeah. So, you know, these obviously, this is a very thin brush. And some people have trouble with that. Um, so they put either like foam. There are ones that you can buy. Some people will just do it with tape, you know, or whatever, just to get like a you know something easier to grip. Like he says, I've tried that on a crochet hook once, but rarely use it. Was with a makeup beauty blender. Never heard of that for painting brushes or like those pencil grip thingies. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like those pencil grip thingies. People will do that as well, for sure. Um, I haven't found an issue with it, but you know, I everyone's different. Depends how you hold it. Just everything's you know, just different, I guess. Um, Obviously crocheting and painting, you hold everything differently anyway, so not an issue there. But yeah, get the put the glasses on so I can see better. Hate having glasses. It's a new thing for me, and I hate it. But what you gonna do? Actually, I need to go to the eye doctor, see about getting new glasses at some point. Sadaki says, yeah, I know those. I know this other streamer who's amazing at his art, and he was too having issues one time with his hands. He was, I think he said, crying or almost because it's so bad, but eventually kept up with the stretches and breaks, etc. But yeah, tradition art with pencil work consistently, I could see the ache on that as well. I already have that when I write a lot too, lol, but mind you, I suppose I don't write as often now on paper as I once did. Well, yeah, I used to get a lot of pain from digital work too. I used to work all digital, and I used to do photo retouching, uh, and I also when I was doing storyboarding, I would have a lot of storyboard artists are um, have a lot of problems in this area because of how much they work and how difficult it is on the body. So yeah, doing the stretches helps. Doing um, strength exercises that strengthen, not just stretches, but things that also build up the muscles in the air surrounding area to support is also very helpful. Um, yeah, I mean I still get pain from doing this too. However, yeah, a lot of times it's different pains than I used to get when I do storyboards because one of the advantages. So I paint. Right now I'm painting standing up. I do have a stool to sit on, although I almost never use it. I need to. So I mostly get uh, back pain from painting now, and shoulder pain. Um, I don't usually get hand pain as much for a few reasons, but one is probably because of how much I'm constantly moving and changing the positioning of everything. But the standing is not great for my back, that's for sure. And the shoulder stuff can happen a lot because it's like a lot of times I paint holding my brush out further from me like this. Not right now. Right now I'm doing the like final parts, but when it's not the end of the painting, but more the what's it called? Beginning stages, then I do that more. So it just depends. Um, yeah. Let's see. Exotic says, "Oh yeah, with my drawing tablet, I was doing art for like 5 or so hours yesterday, and I felt it in my elbows and shoulders. Yeah, I had to use the Voltarian stuff last night before bed, Lamo. Actually, also noticed my back and arms too weirdly, but arm being half up most of the time, I guess. Used to edit images as well, did a little Photoshop. back then, but don't recall too much issues with back then. Who knows? I should get one of those kitchen mats to stand on. You've used one of those for your desk to stand on sometimes. Could help. Well, the Voltarian stuff is muscle cream. Yeah, okay. Um, I don't need one of those mats personally. I don't feel like it. I've camera. I've stood on those before. Personally, it didn't feel like it um, helped me, but that everyone's different. Like I said, I do have a stool here. It's like a wobbly stool that goes up high for when you're standing. The issue I have with it, honestly, is that like I'm wearing shorts right now, and I tend to slide off the stool, so I can't really use it the way it's intended. Um, so I might have to buy a new stool one day. That might be that might be on my list of things to get. At some point. Exactly. This is okay. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure if it helps. I just imagine that the whole concept of walking on concrete. So a little cushion is better than nothing. So yes, but I'm not standing on concrete, so it's um, we I'm actually we have carpet, so um I actually have carpet, and then I put a plastic layer, and then I put a rug over that um, to because I don't want the carpet underneath to get if I spill, which I have. So the plastic is for protection, and the rug is there additional protection. So yes, if you are on a really hard floor, absolutely, I would assume that the cushion would be helpful for sure. Uh, all right, let's fix the ear now. I put it off a little till I warmed up, and then I got stuck on the hand. Now let's get that ear fixed. Yeah, I had a jar of it wasn't this one, but it's like this. Only the one I had was glass. The other one I had was glass. It's this is my Gamsols in here, and I clean my brushes in there. And I had that whole thing fall on the floor and spill out one time. Not great. Yeah, not great. It was a mess. Luckily, like I said, I had stuff there, and it was like it's fine, but it was a whole mess to clean up. Real pain in the butt. I still have a lot of Gamsol, unfortunately, um, because I bought a bunch at one point. Well, I bought a bunch. I bought like I think it was like a gallon thing of it because it was, it was just cheaper to buy that than it was um the smaller ones. Well, price to whatever, obviously the exact price wasn't cheaper, but you know what I'm saying. More economical, whatever. However, since then, since I don't go through it very fast, I go through it actually extremely slowly, unfortunately. Um, and Michael Harding released his Miracle Medium, which is a solvent-free solvent that I could, in theory, use instead of Gamsol for most things. Not everything. There are some limitations to it, but so I do use both now, but it just sucks because I have all this Gamsol that I like. Ideally, I wouldn't use ever because of the fumes. Oh well. Okay, I'm that that yellow is good, but it's too warm. I need to get my other yellow out. Usually I don't use two yellows. I have two yellows out right now because I did a little experiment with paint to see um, some limit, like the ranges of the yellow and so on. So I did some experiments with different yellows. Um, Always fun to do some paint experiments and learn more about the colors. I could wear a cool gas mask for stream. That's funny. No, I can't wear. I cannot. The beard for one, and I do have cats, and they're susceptible to all that stuff. Cookie Monster says, "I really don't want to paint with fumes. We'll paint in oils without thinner." You totally can do that, and I do that most of the time as well. So this is this container is airtight, has a gasket inside, and I only open it to clean my brushes when I'm done painting or when I start painting, and then I close it up. I really don't use this while painting. And Gamsol is the safest of the mineral spirits. It evaporates a lot slower. Um, but I have to be aware of it and cautious of it for sure. Exotic Kitty says, I want to learn watercolor, but I don't know what's a good, cheap start to see if I like it. Um, for watercolors, I would say probably buy one of those small travel ones. Get a decent brand, depending on where you are in the world. Different ones will be, they'll change prices. Get a decent brand. You don't want to get the cheapest because that can affect like your experience with the paint. Yeah, just get one of those like travel ones with the little pans, the little squares in them. Try that. Um, Watercolor. So, some things to be aware of in watercolors. It really depends on the type of art you want to do in watercolors. I would find the artists that you want to do art kind of like them and find out what materials they specifically use. mostly what I'm talking about is the paper, because the type of paper that they work on will change a lot of the handling properties of the paint and how it looks too. For just to give you two extremes, if you work on watercolor paper that's like full cotton, very absorbent, your paint will look very different than if you paint it on UPO paper, which is a plastic paper essentially. Um, Wildly different, so yeah. Exotic Kitty says, Canada, would you trust Amazon for this? Maybe Michael's art store has it because that's kind of the only store I got for art things. I'm sure they would have, maybe I'll look at it. Yeah, both Amazon and Michael's will have it. Um, Hold on a second. Cookie Monster says some painters like Rothko and Van Gogh used lead paint and thinners. Things didn't turn out very well for them. I don't think the lead had anything to do with that, with them in particular. Um, the thinners, maybe it depends. I know that what's his name? I know Van Gogh worked outdoors a lot. If you're working outdoors with paint thinner, as long as it's not right up on your nose, I think you should be okay. Don't take my word for that. It depends on the thinners you're using. Like I said, Miracle Medium now, Michael Harding has Miracle Medium now, which you can use as a thinner and works really well. So I would go with that. Um, Michael Michael says Winsor Newton Winton are cheaper but good, and there's a lot of different paper. Okay, so Exotic Kitty, Michael is recommending Winsor Newton Winton for the paints. Might be a good one. Um, Cookie Monster says they took their own lives. Think the thinners were not working in their favor. Um, I Cookie Monster, I don't think Van Gogh killed himself. I thought he was murdered. Van Gogh once was eating his paint. Well, you definitely shouldn't be eating your paint. That's like one of my channel's mottos: don't eat your paint, for sure. And people used to do other things that were really stupid too, because they didn't know. Like if you use lead paint, for instance, right? The lead has to get into your body somehow to affect it, right? It won't. You can't from the paint itself. You can't like inhale it. Like it doesn't release the pigment into the air. Even if you use solvents, the solvents don't aerosolize the pigment. But if you sand it and create dust, different story. So you got to be very careful with that type of stuff. And of course, there's cadmiums as well. And some people use what is it called? Cobalt dryers, and there's cobalt paint too. Also not good for you. That's one of the reasons I'm wearing gloves, although most of the paints I use aren't that dangerous, and really the gloves are more for my cats than for me. So, you know, because most of the pigments aren't ground fine enough so that they can really be absorbed by your skin, right? Solvent is different, I think, but once again, it gets complicated. I would say if you're not eating this stuff and you're not bathing in it, um, you know, you're probably going to be fine. If it, don't eat it, don't bathe in it, don't sand it and inhale it. Uh, don't rub it into your open wounds. Um, yeah. Oh, and for oil paints, be aware of the spontaneous combustion issue, because that's an issue that a lot of people seem to ignore, and you got to be aware of it. It's not what I would call a huge problem, but you have to be aware of it. All right, Exotic Kitty, no worries. And the reason I say that it's not a huge issue is because obviously if it happens, it's a huge issue. But um, I don't I don't think it's super likely to happen if you're doing like what I would consider quote unquote normal oil painting and oil painting practices. And there's a few very simple things you can do to mitigate the danger. And Cookie Monster says, and don't hang your head over a 10-liter can of house paint. No, yeah, don't do that either. I will say this, the only time I've ever actually gotten sick from fumes from something, it was actually acrylic paint. So, acrylic paint can also have fumes and off gas as well. So you got to be careful of that stuff. It's not as common, but it can happen. Yeah, paint, is like paint often has pretty volatile crap in it that isn't very good for you in general, regardless of the type of paint it is. I would actually say surprisingly a lot of oil paint is the paint itself is uh pretty mild in that sense, even though people don't think it is. It mostly is. Because most oil paint, obviously there are exceptions to this. Um, there's the pigment, which is a ground up fine dust, the oil, which is usually completely not toxic and, uh, you know, in theory, most of the oil is edible. Don't eat your paints. I'm saying the oil itself without the pigments, because like walnut oil is edible, right? Linseed oil is uh, um, what is it? Oil from, I forget the seeds, but it's edible. Like most of those, they're from seeds and stuff that we eat. So technically it's edible. Don't eat your paint. Not an endorsement of that, just saying like the oil itself, right? And then they usually put in some stabilizers and stuff, which um, are probably toxic, but they're not aromatic toxic, meaning they're not like they don't evaporate, so they're not toxic um, to breathe usually because it's not something that evaporates. It's just something that's in the paint. And when oil paint dries, oil paint technically cures. It doesn't dry. So it's a chemical reaction where it oxidizes, right? So technically speaking, for oil paint, it's not like any part of it when it's drying, it doesn't evaporate to dry the way that like um, other paints do, right? Because most other paints, or I'd say water soluble paints, they dry by evaporation. So if you don't use solvents and your paint doesn't have solvents in it for any reason, um, there shouldn't be any fumes in your paint. There are some paints that have like, I forget which brand, but there's one brand that has like a fast drying white paint, and that might have some solvents in it. I don't know. But yeah, just be cautious when, regardless of the paint you use, there's ventilation is never a bad thing, you know? And if you have pets, be careful. They are more susceptible to some are way more susceptible to fumes than you are. So just something to be aware of and cautious about. Like what is it? You know, there's a reason they used to have canaries in coal mines. You know what I mean? Cookie Monster says I recently bought gouache paint, poster paint. Yeah, I like gouache paint. Gouache is fun. I used to paint a lot in gouache before I like while I was kind of started exploring oils in the beginning. I like oils more, but I did enjoy gouache. I think it's very good too. Yeah, gouache is great. Okay, I've told this story before, but I'm gonna tell it again in just a second. 1 second, though. I need to focus real quick here. Okay, I think that's good. Might be too strong. We'll see. Yeah, I think it's too bright. Anyway, yeah, it's too bright. I'll fix it. So, um, so gouache. I used to paint. Okay, this is a few things together. Kind of 1 second. Oh, I need to stretch. So, Yeah, I used to go out plein air painting with gouache. And at the time, I didn't have a lot of time to paint. So when I'd go plein air painting, that was practically the only time I got to paint. And so after a while, I was like, started getting frustrated because I was like, well, if I'm, why am I'm painting with gouache when I go out because I thought it was easier to take with you and paint on the go. And it was, but, you know, um, I really wanted to paint in oils, so I ended up switching over to oils. Um, but gouache is really good for plein air painting, for sure. Unless you go to a very hot desert, then it will not be good. Because I did that, and it literally, I would mix my paint, and between the time that I mixed the paint and I went to put it on the paper, my brush dried. I am not exaggerating. That happened. I had to add way more water than normal just to get paint on the paper. It was crazy. Um, but yeah, but gouache is good. I used to paint in watercolor as well, and in art. When I was in art school, one of the older ladies there was showing me how when she works with watercolor, this is how she would get her brushes to a point. She would take her brush, she would rinse it off in the dirty water. Usually, when working in watercolors, when I would work in watercolors, and everyone I know, they work with 2 cups of water. One is dirty, and then the other one's clean. It gets dirty over time, but it starts off clean. And so you dip in the dirty to clean off the brush, wipe it off, then you dip it in the clean water, and she would wipe it off, and then she would just stick it in her mouth with the bristles, in her mouth, and pull it out while making an O shape with her lips to get the brush to form a point. Don't do that. That's not good, because watercolor, just because it's watercolor, doesn't mean that the pigments aren't toxic. You absolutely can have toxic pigments in watercolor. Don't do that. Yeah. Crazy old lady, though. All right, I'm going to stretch my back for a second. Oh. I think I've shown them before, but yeah, this one, I guess this too, although it's not very good. But yeah, this is a small uh, wash painting. It's not very good. It's years old at this point. I think this one's a lot better. Some fan art. But my main issue with gouache, well, there's a few issues with gouache. One of my main issues with gouache is that um, the color shift. It's so hard to match a color once it dries. I hate that about gouache. And don't get me wrong, you can get very, very close. And most of the time, if you're doing what I would call like natural painting, that's not an issue. But if you have to paint, let's say, one big flat color, and you don't pre-mix enough, you're screwed. Unless you are amazing at matching colors. And to be clear, like I can match colors, but because of the color shift, I can't with gouache. But so you have to be able to like match the color knowing how it's going to shift. And there are artists that can do that. You work in it enough, you'll get there. I just don't. Never did. I didn't work on it enough. For watercolor, there's something I forgot to mention. If I don't know if Exotic Kitty is still here, if she's busy on the phone call, which I understand. But one thing, um, scrap paper to like test your colors on is so important because if you that's one thing I found very frustrating when I tried going back to watercolor from oil paint because I would have my palette and I tried to I'd mix my colors in my palette, but you can't really see what they'll look like on the paper until you put them on paper. So you have to have a bunch of scrap paper to constantly test. If you're good enough, if you have enough experience, maybe you get to the point where that's not an issue anymore. But I never got to that point. I always needed the scrap paper to test my colors on to see what it would look like. All right. That little highlight on the ear is just too bright. So let's tone it down a bit. I know you guys can barely see this. I'm sorry. This is the part of the painting where it's like you all barely get to see what I'm doing half the time because it's so small. But it's just at the stage where like that's what needs to be done. And I don't want to start a new painting. I really want to finish this one right now. Or let me rephrase that. I do want to start a new painting, but I want to finish this one first. I also have I'm going to try and work on like a portrait that I would, I would refer to as like, kind of more of like an institutional kind of portrait. So more traditional in style. I'm going to be working on one of those at some point soon. So we'll see. I might do that on stream. uh, what's it called? The weird lighting in this is throwing off a lot of the colors. Hey Des, I have such a bad cold. Took the dogs for a walk to see if I'll be able to go to the pool tomorrow, but I don't think it's a good idea. Oh, Des, I'm so sorry to hear that. Hope you feel better soon. So, I used to when I would get sick, I used to try and push through it, and like just yeah, just push through it as much as I could. Now, when I get sick, I try and force myself to sleep as much as possible and just like even if I'm not tired, I try and push myself to sleep and just try and sleep through all of it as much as possible. Not just because I don't enjoy the experience, but because I just get better faster that way. But yeah, because when I would try and push through being sick, I would inevitably like it would just linger for like way longer. So it's like, yeah, I'd get through it sort of, but I'd end up just feeling sick for like, you know, double the time. And it just wouldn't go away. Now when I'm sick, it usually doesn't last more than a few days. But like I have to really do nothing during those days, which I realize is not always possible. For anyone, um, Cookie Monster and anyone who wants to do painting, oil painting without solvents, a few things I can recommend. Um, Gamblin, well, okay, first is Michael Harding has Miracle Medium now, which um, is basically a solvent without the solvent fumes and everything. It's safe, supposedly. So that's one option um, that I think is very useful. And then there's also oleo gel, which is a gel medium that doesn't have solvents in it. Gamblin has solvent-free gel medium as well, which is very similar. Um, and obviously, you can also use just oil, linseed oil or walnut oil for medium to help. I mean, you have to consider what's it called? Fat over lean stuff, but it is there. And Michael Harding has, not Michael Harding, M. Graham has a walnut oil, that alkyd walnut oil that I think is a fast drying medium that is solvent free. Exotic Kitty, well, it was nice meeting you. I can start stream now, Lamel. Hub's just called. He's picking me up now to do some errands rather than later. I'll see you later. But I'll leave a lurk. Oh, thank you very much. It was very nice meeting you as well. Um, I do have a Discord and YouTube channel if that's something that interests you. And good luck with your stream when you do get to it. I know you can't do it now, but when you do, good luck. And I'll try and check you out. I'm not on Twitch a lot much, unfortunately, but yeah. Thanks so much for stopping by. It was a pleasure meeting you. Sounds good. Thanks. I'll check on that later. Absolutely. It was a pleasure meeting you. Have a good day. Yeah, Cookie Monster. Absolutely. You're welcome. But yeah, for anyone who so one thing um one of the advice for previously for working solvent free was to use either walnut oil or safflower oil for cleaning your brushes. Um, the problem with that is that when you clean your brush in that, it dirties up the oil. Um, but when you use solvent like Gamsol and you clean your brush, it dirties up the oil, but then the paint sinks to the bottom and the top layer is left clean again. So you can keep using it over and over again. And eventually you run out, but the safflower oil or walnut oil, that doesn't happen. However, Miracle Medium does function that way. So you really can use it to clean your brushes as well, which is really a really good thing if you're one of the artists who likes to constantly clean their brushes throughout their painting. I don't. I don't clean my brushes while I paint most of the time. But if you do, that's a big deal. Let's see. Cookie Monster says, Leod, would you ever want to use political or journalistic subjects in your art? Um, journalistic subjects. I don't know what you mean by that exactly. Political? Mm, I've thought about it, but I have an issue with political subjects. Um, unless we're talking about them just hiring me to paint a portrait, right? Like that's a commissioned portraits are separate, right? Like that's a different thing. But in my own art, um, yeah, it's a problem. I've thought about it, but I don't know how to go about it. And I'll explain in just a second. One of the issues with political subjects are like if it's something I'm doing to protest the certain people, let's say, if I have to paint that person that I don't like, that I want, need to protest, then I have to spend hours looking at this particular subject that I dislike. That's not very appealing to me. Um, if it's someone I like, or a subject matter that I think more positively about, that's better. Um, the one of the issues that I have with that certain types of political painting, things that touch on politics subjects, is that it starts to get into the area of like illustration, and it starts to become very like I'm trying to get a point across, right? I'm trying to say something. And now it's either easier or more straightforward to just say what I'm trying to get across, or a lot of times to just use AI to create the image that I was trying to get across. And I'm not a fan of AI, don't get me wrong, but the point is no longer the painting, but the what I'm trying to convey to someone. And they're not going to care a lot of times if I spent 20, 30 hours working on a painting or if it's a meme. You know what I mean? And that's where the problem starts to come in. And then also, like I said, it's just a lot of times it's just easier to just say what you want to say. And in my paintings, I'm trying to convey more than just what I could say like in a tweet, you know what I mean? Or something like that. Which is the problem I run into. Let's see, Cookie Monster says journalistic subjects like war and famine and climate disaster. Okay, yes and no. So hold on, I don't think, oh, I might have it right here. Actually, I'm not sure where I have it. It might be over here. If not, I think it's one of the paintings in the rotation. Uh, I'm not going to find it right away. Yeah, I'm not going to find it. Okay. Um, I think it's in the rotation. I did a painting of a sunflower when the whole thing with Russia and Ukraine started. There was a story that came out where someone said, I forget what it was, but it was like an old lady told one of the Russian soldiers that there'll be a field of sunflowers where they where their corpses are going to lay or something like that. So a lot of people did sunflowers, and so did I. I did a small sunflower painting. Um, that was like an inspiring moment, and my goal was to, if I sold the painting, to donate the money uh to the to Ukraine or to their aid or whatever. Um, so I'm not opposed to it, but I think a big part of it is like, can I can I create a painting that says something on the subject or makes someone feel something about the subject that I can't convey well or much easier in words, right? Like it's really easy for me to say like, oh, like, I'm going to stick with the Ukraine war because to me it's not a controversial one. So it's like, yeah, okay. It's easy to say that's bad. They shouldn't invade. There shouldn't be a war. They shouldn't fight. People dying is bad. All these things are very easy to say. Um, what would a painting about that add, right? Um, and I think that's where I kind of the issue I get into. So if I can, then then I'm open to it. But if I can't think of anything that would, then I'm not going to. So, and just doing like paintings of people, suffering through an event or something. That's what journalists, journal photographers are for. Like, that's their job, right? And then taking their image and trying to turn that into a painting, I don't feel adds anything, right? So if I could think of a way of adding to it, then absolutely. Like, if there was something in it I could do that would say something, add something to the conversation, have a not necessarily a different opinion, but convey a perspective or a feeling or anything better than what's already out there, I would. I just can't think of a way that I can contribute to that. So I'm not going to. But if there was, absolutely. And I think there are a lot of people who do. I'm not in that place to be able to do that. Um, there's what's it called? There's an artist in America. She goes to, at least I think she's in America. She goes to the different protests that are happening, or she was going to all the protests that were happening, and she would try and draw the the protest as it was happening, and as the like, when there was violence, she would be there trying to draw it as it was happening, sometimes as like they were throwing smoke grenades and all that stuff. That says, I think I saw her. You did. I think you sent me a thing about her. And I love the concept. I'm not crazy about her art. Like, I saw the drawings. They're, as expected, they're chaotic. And I don't feel like I don't like them for their aesthetic alone. I love the concept of it. Her drawings don't do much for me, but it's a cool idea. Cookie Monster says, you have an interesting perspective. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. If I could figure out a way of, like I said, if conveying an interesting perspective in a painting, I think I'd do it. But I don't know what I would do to make it to add to the conversation. That says we have a great political cartoonist here, Michael D. Adder. Yeah, so po- political cartoons are awesome. I love political cartoons and satire cartoons about, stuff. Um, I The difference between a cartoon and a painting is it that does like the almost the same subject, is 20, 30 hours. You know what I mean? Like you can do a political drawing cartoon quickly. It takes whatever amount of time it takes, but it can take, let's say it takes, even if it's a really good one, a really detailed one, I don't know, like an hour to do. I mean, maybe you have to plan it and everything, sure. But if you want to take that same concept and turn it into a painting, you're talking about hours and hours. And that's where, like, I don't know, I feel like, I don't know, I don't know that it adds a ton of value to it. And now with AI, you can create that so quickly. Obviously, I'm not saying it's as good. I don't think that. But I don't think that people care is the issue. That says the thing with the politics too, is that it's so temporary. The issues come and go. The art pieces might not be understood 100 years from now because of the situation change. Oh, what, for sure, for sure. So one of the so Picasso, there's a famous painting that Picasso did of I forget what it's called. It's a big painting he did, and it was regarding. It was like he did that after they bombed, after Germany, I think, bombed. I might be getting the details wrong, but it was like someone bombed someone. I think it was Germany bombed England during World War II. It was a big deal, and he did this painting. Doesn't convey any of that, but I guess you could understand the feeling that it's trying to convey as long as you knew that kind of context. Not my favorite painting, not my favorite painter in the world, but I like that painting in the sense that it's conveying the feelings of a particular event, but it's not depicting the event, but rather conveying kind of what it felt like in a way. I like that. Des asked me, wait, yeah, Des asked, did you see the one of Christian Hook's horse painting sold at auction for $1 million for charity? I didn't. He's been doing a big series in Dubai over the last few years too. High-end clients. Yeah, Dubai. Um, Cookie Monster says, uh, wait, how do I pronounce that? Can't even read that. 1 second. Okay, Garnick. Is it? I don't know how to pronounce that. Uh, is Picasso's most famous work? Don't forget. LOL. Is that the piece I was describing? Because it might be. It might be that. Because I'm not. I'm definitely not talking about like a hidden piece of work or something. That's the piece you talked about. Yeah, that's what I thought. But if I'm not mistaken, Picasso was already well known at that point. I don't know if it would have been such a what's it called? Like monumental piece of his body of work if he wasn't already famous at that point. Says spent 3 years in art history, once per week. We definitely covered that one. I, I really, my art school did not cover art history at all, and I kind of want to like do something where I, study some art history. The problem is that if art history isn't taught properly, it's boring as hell. It says this was in high school. Yeah, yeah. I in high school I would have been bored out of my mind by most of this. Oh, to go back to like one thing we were talking about a little bit about the toxic fumes and all that. It was the hat makers that really got the short end of the stick for a long time. This is my high school art teacher was pretty hands off when I asked him if it was good enough to go into fine arts in university, he said, "Do you think you're good enough?" That's helpful. Very helpful. That says it's probably the right answer, but a kid doesn't know that. I don't think it's the right answer. I'll be honest. I understand what you're saying. Like you have to kind of believe in yourself, and that's part of it. But as a kid, you're not there yet, you know. Um, so I think it's a maybe as part of the answer, but it's definitely incomplete. Like I think if a kid asked me if they, you know, if I thought that they were good enough for art school, you know, I think I would have to answer like in a few different ways. Like first of all, if they are really good, I would, probably say yes, but and then go into a whole thing about how like where they're at right now isn't enough to, take them all the way through, but that if that's what they want to do, they could. But if they're not that good, then it would be kind of a thing where it's like, you know, yes, but with caveats like be prepared for this, this, and this, and you're going to have to do this and this and so on. Like I think you'd have to warn them that kind of what to expect and be realistic about where they're at. And it's not about them not having the potential, it's about where they're at right now and what to expect, kind of thing. Cookie Monster says, when you put in the work, you have every right to believe in yourself. Sure, you do, of course. Um, but you have to be up for putting in the work and you have to have the realistic expectations, And I think that's how you have to like frame it for the kid so that they, know what to expect. There's also something worth mentioning, which is like it depends on the type of art that the kid is trying to go for, right? Because there's a huge difference between like fine art and like more commercial art. If you're going for uh, more like commercial art to get a job, it's very different than fine art. Um, and that I don't want to say it's more objective, but they do have more like particular standards that they go for. And that's worth knowing. I would say I want people to have realistic expectations, and I do. But what are realistic expectations? It's hard to say because there's so many variables to that I don't know that I could honestly tell someone what are realistic expectations. Oh, that's just reminded me. I was talking about that video of the woman who was talking about like what paintings sell and don't. And another thing she covered was like your paintings have to have color, and that like the color is so important versus like gray paintings that don't have a lot of color. And I'm like, man, I get what you're talking about, but once again, I know a bunch of artists who do paintings with like very dark and gray colors and sell. So like, I get what she's saying, but like, with a grain of salt kind of thing. Like a random thing, but it came up because I was thinking about the colors. I was trying to get in there, but yeah. Hold on a second. All right. All right. What are we? 2 hours and a half? Yeah. I think I'm going to call the stream. I was thinking I'd go a little longer, but I need to sit down for a little bit. My back is not happy with me at the moment. But yeah, I'm making good progress. It's getting close. It's getting really close. It's really refining a lot of the details now. Um, in the face in particular, and then some final touches in certain areas, and then the gold. So yeah, it's getting there. All right, I'm gonna wait. The camera's there today. All right, I'm gonna call it a day. Um, sorry, sorry I couldn't go on for longer today. Hope everyone has a good rest of your weekend. And Des, I hope you feel better. And for all the new people, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. And yeah, see you soon. Yeah, I will try and be back definitely Thursday. If not Thursday, no, I mean, definitely Thursday. Maybe during the week. We'll see, but definitely Thursday. So, anyways, have a good one, everybody. Bye for now.